because like at the end of that first half, and people around me in the ground were just talking to each other, going, that was a really good first half.
Yeah.
We are well in this, and because there was a level of disbelief, right? Because we all thought we'd probably get stuffed anyway, and then to show that level of performance.
Yeah,
everyone was feeling positive. Okay, we didn't really make a lot of clear-cut chances, but we looked well in for it. But then after the half, and then I don't know whether obviously the substitutions may have changed something, but we just didn't look quite as at it. And then that first goal went in, and it just felt to me like the balloon had burst at that point. That just kind of felt the stuffing had been knocked out of us. We didn't really believe we'd turn it around, and I don't think the crowd believed we'd turn it around either.
I think the first goal was key, based on how we had been performing. To concede it so early in the second half. Chelsea really came at us, but it wasn't a goal through open play. From a set piece where the oldest man in the stadium, let alone on the pitch, found himself free in the box to score a free header. It was just shows that we hadn't really come out from the changing room for the second half, and then as you say, we then concede that second goal, which was a touch fortunate as usual. But the thing that frustrated me was, you said we were a bit deflated, but we're like any team. It's a London derby, number one, and number two, like any team, if you concede a goal, like you need to show some urgency to try and win it. We 81 minutes and we're still playing the ball across the back four, playing it into midfield, then pop out to the back four. We're not showing any urgency, no desire to take a risk to try and get in behind.
But where did that aggression from the first half go? Because a couple of things that stood out for me is some of our players were nicely aggressive in that first half, and even people like Son, they were getting stuck in, and But after that goal, it evaporated. It was strange.
I'm not sure. I can't put my finger on it, but as you say, in terms of how we're pressing, so I don't know if that's our own psyche or whether that's something. You would hope it wasn't Nuno saying, "Okay, we're just going to, we know they're going to come at us in the second half. We're just going to give it 5 minutes to see how it kind of plays out. So try and just just sit back a little bit and don't we probably, as I said, at the end of the first half, I think the problem was at the end of the first half. If you look at the last 15 minutes, even though we were pressing high, they were starting to get in behind in the wide areas. So they were playing in and playing out into the wide areas and then exposing us. And we were we were having 2-on-1s at the back where we were having to really, be really strong defensively and make good decisions about how to mitigate the fact that they were probably one good pass away from being clear on goal. So he might have said, right, well, we need to sort of shore that up a little bit at the back and try and be a little bit more, risk averse in terms of where we press because they're playing around us. I'm not sure. But it didn't work because they just, they came at us with a mass intensity and just as Theo said, I think it was 3 or 4 corners and they were on the bounce.
They seem to have loads of energy, Steve, right? They their energy never flagged. They looked really fit. They looked really on it. They looked very aggressive. They looked like they were finding more gears to go through.
But that's their manager, isn't it? Look at their manager on there was a decision. I can't remember the decision, right? But he flew out of his dugout, right?
Yeah.
And he was up and his arms were waving and he was giving it all of that. And that's his, and you can imagine that's probably his energy all the time. But can you imagine his energy at halftime? Look, we're being dominated in a London derby where as you say, as Theo said, probably one of the best teams in the world against a team that really, we should be beating. They should have been beating us on paper. Go out and prove it, and make it. He's made it. He's very clever as well. So there will be a tactical change in there.
About this issue that a number of times people have mentioned about under Mourinho, perhaps we weren't fit enough, and we've been working them hard to try and get that up in pre-season. But I mean, we looked at that second half leggy, a bit exhausted. There's players like Lo Celso, players like Ndombele, a number of other players that can't seem to give us 90, 95 minutes. I mean, what's behind this? Would anyone like Theo? What do you think?
I don't really know. That is a worry. I can't really explain that. I wonder if it's physical or it's a bit psychological as well. Because I don't. When you think when we were last good, which is actually now probably about 2.5 years ago or more, but under Pochettino, if you look at what we were then and what we are now, what we had then was a settled system, a definite way of playing. And we had a pretty settled side. If you think of the real heyday of Pochettino, where we had the two best, flying fullbacks in the league, the two best I've ever seen play for us, or probably anyone else in this country at the time. We had one of the best central defensive partnerships. Earth. In Verting. Then we had that 4-2-3-1 system. So we always had, at times Dembele, say, and Dyer when he looked like he was going to be a good defensive midfielder, who's contended to be captain of England in that position, And then we had Dele bombing on. We had Son or Lamela on the left, hopefully Son. And then we had on the other, and then we had Eriksen playing as a number 10, and they had Kane, the best striker in the league. And that team was able to play anyone. We were playing teams like Juventus and Real Madrid off the park, thrashing Liverpool, and one year we were the best team over the calendar year in terms of points and everything. And you look at that Chelsea side, they look something like that. They've got a system, they all feel stable, they all feel, but it's competitive to get in the team, but they have confidence in the manager, the confidence in the system. Some of those players, like I just described, what our team was then, this Chelsea team has some of the best players in their positions in the world. We're a million miles away from that. So I don't know if they're tired, these are players, or whether they are lacking that conviction and energy that comes from knowing that you're all part of you have that esprit de corps and you have a plan and you're all united behind a leader and a plan. None of that is at all present in our team, our club at the moment. We've got to try and get back there. Yeah. And I don't know whether we will under this manager or not. But
sort of jaded mentality. But we've had a fair few turnovers. It's not like the squad has remained static for a couple of seasons. So you'd think that it would permeate now into these new players. We could get that across to them.
Yeah, I just think it's a time of turmoil, and that's certainly not the manager's fault. It's not really any of the players' fault, but he's not close yet, and he hasn't had a chance to, because not just because he's new, but because of various circumstances. He hasn't had a chance to really bed in a system and a way of playing and a philosophy and all of that. He hasn't even had the whole squad all together at the same time. A lot of them have just arrived. Some of them, pissed off to bloody South America, having been told not to. It's been a nightmare for him. I mean, thank God he got those 3 slightly fortunate wins to begin with. Otherwise, we could be down the bottom, and then he'd be really under massive pressure. We'd be like the crisis club, So at least he managed to do that. But I think we've got tough times ahead,
Spurs in crisis.
Yeah.
This is the Varside Arms, right? And but here's something to sober you up. Some stats: 19th in the league on shots, 17th in the league on goals scored, 19th on XG, 20th for successive pressures, 19th in terms of tackles won, 18th in terms of successful tackles won, and 19th in progressive carries. That's not good reading.
Well, that's relegation. That's relegation stuff.
Yeah,
obviously.
Simon,
it's not, but it's also, I guess, but okay, but then those are disproportionate in my sense on the basis that you're 5 games in, we've had two bad games and 2 bad results, and then the 3 before the international break weren't our finest hour. But that feels like it. When you read that in isolation, it sounds much worse than I feel that it is, and that's not taken away from the fact that there is work to do, and the data will speak for itself if you like. But if fans start falling down that black hole, and it will suck people in,
which they are already, right? Because someone had pulled him for his head already.
Yeah, so it's just it's going to be the doom and gloom black hole which is going to suck people in, and I feel that's not disputing what it says, but I think those have been skewed by 2 very bad days out, and in the wider context of 38 games that we've got, and we had 3 reasonable-ish performances that we managed to get away with. It just makes it sound much worse than I personally feel that it is. If it continues that way and we end up bottom, then he's going to have a big problem by the time we get to Christmas. But I think at the moment that's quite a skewed set of data.
So Sarah, could you think we can draw anything from those stats? I mean, what are you making of Nuno at the moment?
I've always felt like, especially because he only got a 2-year deal, that even Daniel Levy deep down believes he's not our long-term manager. Otherwise, he'd have given him a big deal, firstly and foremost. But if stats were to be believed, we would have won the Premier League, right? Because we had, a whole calendar year where we were the best team on paper for almost everything, and it translated into 0 trophies, 0 desirable cup finals or outcomes in those situations. Yes, we got into Champions League's final, League Cup final, plenty of semi-finals, but it never got us over the line. So what good is it if mentally you're not strong enough in those big moments? I think that's probably where we lack the most. But I think there's a lot of culture in the club that needs to change for that to change, because we said team went 1-0 down and they looked like that was it and game over, and as a fan I sort of felt, well, that's it, game over. And then they got the second one and I thought, well, what's the point in watching the last half an hour, because we're not going to turn it round. And I think sometimes we're our own worst enemy, although rightly so at the moment, where we're not even playing nice football. So it's harder to even just support what's going on. It's not like we've got a lot of young kids in the team. No. We're not, other than Ollie Skip, we're not providing lots of opportunities. We're not saying, right, okay, maybe we're going to finish 6th and 7th, but we're going to have a whole team of kids that are another year older next year. We've got an old squad, aging squad that's underperforming.
But this has been, this has been a recurring theme for 4 managers now. So, make it clear that the first half gave me some hope, actually, what we could do if we can find a way to kind of harness that. But I think there were some unacceptable performances. I mean, I still don't get what Lo Celso is. He's a curate's egg of a player. I've no idea.
Lamella's better. Unpopular opinion.
Really, I really don't know what he offers or how he affects games. I know, Steve, you were saying Royale was pretty rotten overall, but I cut him some slack because he's new to the Prem.
No, sorry, and I'll let you carry on with the rest. But in the second half, he was right in front of me in terms of recovery, and I don't know who he was up against, but it was what's that? It was the wing back, the number I can't remember, but the ball's going in behind him, and he's. They're sprinting in and he's jogging back, really, and people are having to come across. So you've had centre backs having to come across, Højbjerg's having to come across. Everyone else is having to come across and do that work, whilst he's just sauntering back with no urgency. That's got nothing to do with being new. That's just a lack of desire.
So he bought a pup.
Really? We did. I think so. I think we've been royally screwed over with him. I think he's absolutely.
Well, what about Reggie then? Because that weren't very good either.
No, I know, and we've had this debate. I know you think that, for me, out of the 2 of them, I think that Royal was worse than Reggie. I think Reggie gave us stuff going forward. He tried to get forward. His end product wasn't the best going forward, but actually, he gave us options in the attacking third and contributed in the attacking third, where Royal didn't contribute in either sense, really. He did nothing. A couple of times he nearly got, whenever he had the ball, he nearly turned it over. It was just, for me, that was an awful performance from him. Theo, and that was first and second half.
Any thoughts on some of the individual performances of on that second half?
Well, I think Royal wasn't very good, and I noticed actually that Dyer gave him a massive bollocking at one point for doing exactly